Brien, how are you doing, sir?
I am good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Of course, welcome everybody to episode number 3 of the Skol Purple podcast. Certainly appreciate everybody joining us back. And as you already heard, we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Brien Hanley. Brien, you're doing well today.
I am doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on and joining us. I'm going to take a wild guess, Brien, and say that you might be a Steelers fan.
Just a little bit of a Steelers fan.
Yeah, well, you're experiencing this week just like we had. What was it? The week before last. You guys are on the bye this week.
Yep, yep. On a bye. I don't know that we're really that beat up. I mean, we just need a bye just to heal mentally. I mean, it's bad. It's bad, man.
Yeah, man. I certainly feel for you guys. As a Minnesota Viking fan, I can tell you that I speak for many Minnesota Vikings fans when I say that most of us, me included, are big fans of Mike Tomlin. Obviously, he has some major connections here in Minnesota as he was under Coach Dungy when they were both here in Minnesota. So, really, I would say you've got a lot of crossover fans between Viking fans and Steeler fans. So I know it's been kind of tough sledding so far this year, but the one nice thing with a bye week is that you can't lose. So
There you go. Can't lose. Finally, some good news.
you can't lose. You can't lose. Well, before we get into kind of your outlook on the Steelers, because there's a lot to chew on there. I have some opinions, and I'm certainly excited to hear yours. I want to start off with asking, who is your favorite Steeler of all time?
Mean Joe Green, without question. Mean Joe Green. Now he played a long time ago. I'm a little older. I mean, I'm 47, so I remember him somewhat, but YouTube now. But Mean Joe Green is easily my favorite Steeler of all time.
Yeah, boy, if I had to pick my favorite Steeler as an outsider, now I'm a little younger than you, but not by much. I'm gonna go with the bus. It's hard to pass up on the bus because
Okay,
I grew up with the bus. The bus
sure.
was kind of a staple. I'm kind of a husky guy, so it's nice to see those big boys out there, making
Yeah,
a difference.
absolutely. I like Jerome Bettis as well. Jerome Bettis is a favorite. I got several favorites. I mean, I like John Stallworth. I mean, obviously Mean Joe Green. I like Troy Polamalu. I mean, there's just a plethora of guys of Steelers that I absolutely love. But my all-time favorite is Mean Joe Green.
Yeah, 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 and to be honest, without all the drama, Roethlisberger probably has to be up there for me as well. Mainly because he looks like he could be a member of my family. So there's that. Uh, but Midwest guy.
Absolutely.
Well, I certainly like your pick. I do have to ask, and that's going to be the next kind of portion here. So, what is going on in Pittsburgh, man? How are the Steelers doing? What are you seeing? Because again, as an outsider, I've only seen bits and pieces. They don't play a lot of the games here,
Sure, sure.
but I keep up with the NFL. Certainly, I'm paying attention of what's going on around the league, and the Steelers have been such a trademark or kind of one of those pillars of the NFL for so long.
Right.
It's hard not to notice when they're either doing really well or struggling. So yeah, where do you see them, and where do you see the season outlook and beyond?
Well, right now, obviously, the Steelers right now are struggling. I mean, the problem and the elephant in the room is their offensive line is literally the worst in the league. You can't win football games when you have the worst offensive line in the NFL. You just can't do that. So they're not good. Obviously, we're playing a rookie quarterback. You're going to have some growing pains there, but he's not the problem. The defense is also a huge, huge problem. They just don't have a good defensive line. TJ Watt being out, on the other side, I mean, we're okay, but Cam Hayward makes a ton of money interior for not a lot of production. He's a little older. Our linebackers are weak. Devin Bush, I mean, we're not bringing him back next year. We didn't sign him to his 5th-year option. Miles Jack is okay. I mean, he's played decent, but we don't have linebackers. Our secondary is abysmal. I mean, yes, we got Mika Fitzpatrick, and he's one of the top safeties in the league. But other than that, I mean, they're terrible. And that's not me being the fan. That's just being an honest opinion. They're just not good. So on the defensive side of the ball, we have problems. So when you can't run the ball because your offensive line is bad, you play a rookie quarterback and you have a bad defense, it's set up to have a horrible season. And every franchise kind of goes through that, man. That's kind of the problem. I mean, basically, it goes back to bringing Ben Roethlisberger back last year. They should have never done it. They should have started over last year, and we didn't do that. So, yeah, we made the playoffs, but we got in on a technicality. There was a 0 chance that we were going to advance in the playoffs, and we didn't. We got destroyed by the Chiefs. And so we just wasted a year of rebuilding when we knew the rebuild was coming. It's just, when are we going to do it? And it's tough for Steeler fans to deal with because, the last time we were bad was 2003. We were 6-10. The year after that, we go 15-1. So, and then it was, I think in 99 was the last time they were 6-10 then. So the Steelers have been good, like really good for 25 years. And going through this rebuild, it's tough for us fans, man. It's tough. I'm telling you. But that's where we are. We're going through the rebuild that every franchise goes through. I'm not sure what the future holds because it's, where do you start? We got to have some draft picks. Getting rid of Chase Claypool the other day was a start. We're going to have to get rid of some other guys and just literally start over because we need picks. We got to rebuild the offensive line. And until we do that, we're not going to win anywhere. We're not going to be able to do anything, literally.
Yeah, that's interesting you bring all that up. And one of the things that came to mind for me was, the Vikings, this has been one of my biggest, I don't know if you want to even call it a criticism necessarily, but the Vikings have been stuck in this position before, or a similar position where we need to rebuild and there's a lot of holes to fill, but we are one of those organizations where very rarely will you see the Vikings in a 3-win season or
Right.
a 2-win season. And I feel like the Steelers are similar in that sense. They've had more success than the Vikings certainly have had, certainly in the playoffs, going back the last 20 or so years. But if you look at the way the franchises are set up, it is similar in the sense that they're just, even in the bad years,
Right.
they end up picking outside of the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard when you're in this, this perpetual state of mediocrity, where you're not good enough to win a Super Bowl, but you're not bad enough to get a top 5 pick.
Right.
So it's just, and not that every top 5 pick pans out. Certainly we know they don't, but it is nice to be able to get those high caliber picks, even if you don't use them. Maybe you use them as capital in a trade, or to trade back, or to collect more picks. So having those upper echelon picks do mean something. And I do understand your pain there. I remember when the Vikings went 3-13. I believe this was the 2000 and might have been 2011. And boy, that was horrible.
Right.
Having to sit through all that. And the worst part is the only seeming, maybe glimmer of hope that we had at the time was Christian Ponder as a rookie. Yeah. And you're going, oh boy, if that's the bright spot.
It's dicey.
Yeah. I mean, we had Adrian back then, and that was unfortunate. We wasted some of prime Adrian years there, but we did make it to the playoffs in 2012 with Adrian. So, and Christian Ponder.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of the way that the Steelers are. I mean, you're exactly right, man. Everybody brags about, Mike Tomlin's never had a losing season, and that's great. But when you can't get a high enough draft pick to get guys that really make a difference, it makes it difficult. And we reached a couple of years ago, we traded up to number 10 to get Devin Bush. And kind of what you mentioned, those draft picks don't always work out. That one didn't work out. So it's just, it's going to be nice because we're going to finish in the lower half of the league this year, and we're going to get a high draft pick. So I'm excited about that. As long as guys just don't get beat up and hurt, and we're competitive, that's what I'm looking for. Just be competitive.
Yeah. Well, I guess then this lends to my next question. And I don't even want to ask it, but what do you think? What do you think they're going to do with Tomlin? Do you think Tomlin is on borrowed time? Do you feel like the organization's going to look for a change? Because what is Tomlin? He's like the fourth coach in franchise history or something like that. I mean, it's a
It,
crazy run you guys have been on with coaches.
yeah, I mean, I think he's a third one that I think in like 50 years or
Yeah,
something
there you
like that.
go.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy. But I made a post a couple of weeks back that it was time to move on from Tomlin. I firmly stand behind that because, and it's not that Mike Tomlin's not a great football coach, because as I said then, we can let him go and he'll have a job before he even gets out the door, and he will. But in Pittsburgh, sometimes the message gets lost, especially what's going on in the locker room now. If you start listening to quotes, they're starting to blame coaching. Even Kenny Pickett, he's blaming the coach. Deontay Johnson, Najee is they're all starting to blame the coach. Even Mitchell Trubisky, they're blaming coaching. They're blaming practice habits, for mistakes that are happening in the game. Well, when that starts to happen, that means the locker room is starting to be fractured. And if the locker room is going to be fractured, that's what you could always hang your hat on with Mike Tomlin, is that he was a great communicator. Well, that's starting to get stripped away and the message is getting lost, because sooner or later it's got to be about X's and O's. And I don't know that Mike Tomlin's ever been great with X's and O's, which is fine. As long as you can communicate and motivate, you're okay. Now that you can't do that and the message is being lost, at some point you got to do something different. You got to move on from that. And they're not going to get rid of Tomlin, I don't believe. But if they did, I'm not going to be upset about it.
Yeah, I'm as I already tipped my hand. I mean, obviously I am a Tomlin fan, but I don't necessarily disagree with you. And I just think that sometimes franchises, I mean, how long has Tomlin been there?
16 years.
Yeah, 16 years. And after 16 years, sometimes you just need new.
Yeah.
The fan base needs new, the organization needs something that's new. And at the end of the day, it's not, as you already kind of mentioned, it's not necessarily a, blemish on Tomlin's record or tenure or ability. At the end of the day, sometimes it just ran its course. And,
Absolutely.
it's kind of like a relationship, knock on wood. Don't let my wife hear that. I love you, honey. We are not running our course. Please don't make me leave. But when it comes to coaching, yeah, just sometimes they need something new. They need a fresh perspective. And, the NFL is always revolving, or excuse me, not revolving, evolving. Look at the Vikings with Mike Zimmer. I was a Mike Zimmer fan when he first came to Minnesota. I think he did what he needed to do to turn around the organization. I think we needed a culture change at that point. The locker room was not in a great place. Sounds a little similar to what you guys have going on. And Zimmer came in and, got things buttoned up, instituted a new type of culture and team. And I think that worked, and it worked well.
Mm-hmm.
And then once, veterans started to age and you start to lose some of the core pieces, and then the NFL, changing to a very offensive minded and catered to type of a league, it just didn't work for Mike Zimmer's brand of football. And when you got a guy that's, a little bit more on the authoritarian side,
Right.
all about defense, and then you're not winning,
Right.
um, at the end of the day, again, all hats off to Zimmer for what he did. And certainly, the news this week, I don't know if you saw, but his son passed away.
Yeah.
So certainly, prayers up for the Zim family. So no, I liked Mike quite a bit while he was here, but I certainly knew the writing was on the wall that some change needed to happen. And look where we are here. This roster isn't that much different. I mean, you
Right.
can look at the additions of like Zadarius Smith, obviously, who's done very well so far. But at the end of the day, I mean, what's really that much different with the roster? Not
Right.
much. So sometimes you just need that spark that new brings. It's like the honeymoon period in a relationship. Boy, I'm really digging myself a hole tonight. Uh, but it is the same in that sense where, guys are excited, they feel fresh, and it certainly is more tailored towards today's NFL. So I would agree with you. I'd hate to see Tomlin leave, but it might be the right time for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it's just, it's really going to depend for me, depend on how the rest of the season kind of pans out. See what happens the rest of the season. If guys rally, then you know what? Okay, fine. He's doing a better job because our roster isn't great. I mean, it just isn't. But if the guys don't rally and starts to get fractured, then I mean, again, I don't think the Steelers are going to do it, but I think that they should. I mean, we got to go in a different direction.
Yeah. Well, looking at the schedule for Pittsburgh, I hate to say it, but you guys could go. I mean, and again, I being 2-6, the outlook doesn't look great, but your remaining schedule, I see some wins in there, at least some
Yeah,
potential wins. And it's funny because as a fan, it's like you don't want them to lose, but at the
right.
same time, I mean, if you're going to have a bad season, you might you might as well have a good one,
I mean, that was the thing is that we thought we were going to struggle early in the season, and we did. I mean, we beat Tampa. It turns out Tampa's really not that good. At least they're not playing that well. So, and to beat Cincy on the road the first game of the year, and especially how we did it, it's just okay. I thought we could start over or at least 1-7. At two
Yeah.
and six, you're right. There's some wins in there, and it's like, but once you get confidence, you get some more wins. It's like, where are we going with this thing? And then that's exactly what it is. And then we end up with the 19th pick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's been a weird year. There's been so many teams that are, 3-4, 4 and whatever we're at now, 4-4. Um, yeah, it's an odd year so far. I have to say, it doesn't seem like there are many teams that are really pulling ahead.
Mm-mm.
And I'd love to say that my team is one of them. Certainly at 6-1, the record suggests that, but we've had a lot of ugly wins. Let me tell you, Brian. So even at 6-1, I'm a Vikings fan, so I've
Sure.
been here before.
No, I mean, but I picked the Vikings to win that division to start the year. I knew that Green Bay was going to take a step back. But my philosophy on that was it's now or never for the Vikings. It's like, look, the stars are aligned. You got a new coach. Okay, it was the coach before. You get a new coach. Green Bay's down. The Bears are going to be terrible because they literally can't figure it out over there. Detroit, same thing. Can't figure it out. Organization's just bad. It's now or never for the Vikings. At least from an outsider looking in, it's like if you can't win the division this year, then you're never going to win it because it's tailor made to do it. And you're right, they're struggling winning games. I say ugly or struggling winning games, but they are winning. These are games that they would have lost in other years, and they're winning these games. So I applaud them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been an interesting go. We had 14 of our 17 games last year were decided by one score,
Whew.
and we lost 8 of them. So again, there's the difference in coaching, difference in philosophy. We've, turned some of those close losses into some close wins. So yeah, it's an interesting year so far. Switching gears then into, of course, our favorite purple team. Because definitely not Baltimore. We can agree on that. Um, the Vikings are doing well, as I mentioned, 6-1. The big news this week, obviously, was the TJ Hawkinson trade that we gave up a couple of picks for. I believe it was a third next year and a fourth the following year. Certainly, from my view, I'm happy with the trade. I'll give you my perspective, and then I'd love to hear your opinion. I like the trade a lot. It came right at the heels of us losing our other tight end, Irv Smith, who all of us Viking fans were really excited about this year. And then he's just one of those guys where he continues to have injury issues. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate because the guy has an immense amount of talent.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it every year. And then there's just little tic-tacky things. He had a thumb injury in camp that kept him out all camp and all preseason. So then he wasn't, his first game of the year was the opener. And your conditioning is always going to be a little suspect when that happens. Not that I'm one to talk, but hey, they don't pay me to play football here. But and then it was I think he had a rib injury or some other kind of minor setback where again just keeps him limited in practice, and then he had a high ankle sprain this last game, and that's going to now land him on IR. So unfortunate event, turn of events there for him, but again that probably opened the door for us to be a bit more aggressive and going after a Pro Bowl tight end within the division, which is really odd. I'm not sure how we turned that one up, but I don't know. What are your thoughts from an outsider perspective on that one?
I mean, again, the Detroit. I mean, what are you doing? Literally, what are you doing? It's just they just can't get out of their own way. So for Minnesota, it is an awesome trade. Awesome trade. I mean, they have to be ecstatic to be able to pick him up. It's just, and you're right about Irv Smith. It's crazy because he is ultra talented, ultra athletic for the tight end position. But he's been getting hurt since college, and he has just been hurt and hurt and hurt every single year. So, I mean, if he could put a season together, I mean, the guy would be incredible. It's too bad.
Yeah.
But as far as the trade goes, man, at Minnesota, they got to be jumping for joy. They really do, because they got over again on the Lions. I mean, just what are you doing? But good for you. Good for you, man.
Yeah, it is one of those things too where this offense is built really to stress a defense. I mean,
Mhm.
you've got Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, whatever you want to think about Kirk Cousins, certainly he can sling it when he gets some time. Now you had Hawkinson, and if you didn't notice, I also left out a little guy by the name of Justin Jefferson. So, and then behind both Jefferson and Thielen, we've got a young receiver in KJ Osborne,
Mhm.
who is also very talented. So, there's some of us on this podcast, by the way, that believe that Osborne might be number 2 before the end of the year. But hey, we'll see what happens. Um, so certainly the Vikings team is built in a way that the defense isn't great. It's a bend but not break type of defense. If you actually look at the defensive statistics for the Vikings, they're pretty bad. They're not
Right.
great. The difference is between when you look at the yardages and then some of the other teams that are comparable. They're just not giving up as many touchdowns as some of these other teams. So, we're making teams settle for field goals, even though we're giving up, geez, a pretty good amount of yardage every game. I think the Vikings are at, well, I can tell you, the Vikings are averaging currently giving up, let's see here, 401 yards a game of total
Woo.
offense and 20 points a game. Now, if I were to look at comparable teams that are in that 400 yards a game category, they're probably at 24, 25 points. So there's your difference. Really, you're talking about a lot of close games. Those become losses, if we don't keep people out of the end zone. Comparably, if we were to go to Pittsburgh, because I was looking at your defense as well, you guys are actually right around the same, about 406 yards a game total defense that your total offense that you're giving up, I should say. You guys are pretty good against the run. It's
Yeah.
really just the pass, man. You guys are struggling,
Yeah.
and then keeping people out of the end zone. You guys are at about 25 points a game,
Yeah.
as far as what you're giving up, and really where you're hurting is that the offensive side of the ball.
Oh,
Um, it's at 15, which
yeah.
is just it can't happen. And I
No.
think that's the key with the Vikings right now is if the offense can hum, it makes opposing defenses one dimensional. Because if
Absolutely.
you're up by 2 scores or certainly more than that, teams have to start being aggressive. They get away from the run, and it makes a weak defense look stronger.
Mhm.
So that's really the mode of this team is just to try to score enough points where our defense can pin their ears back and get after the quarterback.
Sure.
Yeah. How are you seeing that on your end, by the way, with the Steelers? Not to jump back with your squad, but looking at those numbers, obviously they're not great, but they're not horrible. But boy, man, it is that offensive side of the ball. How are you feeling about Pickett? I should have brought this up earlier, but I do want to get your opinion. I haven't seen anything on Pickett, so I will reserve no judgment. How
Sure.
are you feeling about Pickett?
Well, I call him baby hands Pickett, because he has his tiny hands. And, you know, my thing is I didn't want to draft him. I thought it was a mistake. I thought we should have went offensive line and waited until next year. We had already signed Trubisky. I'm like, if it's a bridge year, then just play Trubisky and deal with what we need to deal with. Make the roster better. Pickett doesn't make the roster better. He just doesn't. As far as what he's doing, he's going through rookie growing pains. He forces the ball. I mean, he's got 2 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. And there's a couple of games like he throws an interception that loses the Jets game. He throws an interception to lose the Dolphins game. I mean, he's throwing these interceptions that are literally losing games for us. Now, granted, he's forcing the ball, trying to make a play. Those things will come with experience and time. But as far as, him overall, he's got to get better. And there's flashes. There's flashes, but he doesn't have a running game to help him. A rookie quarterback, you got to have a running game to help you. He doesn't have one at all. Najee Harris, I know a lot of people like him. I'm still not sold. I don't think that he's that great of a running back. I know his line is terrible, and it is terrible, but I'm just, there's times when there are holes and he misses them. Plays that he can make, he doesn't make. But as far as Pickett is concerned, I mean, it's just, he's a rookie. He's going through rookie stuff. He shouldn't be on the field right now. He should be watching. But we put him out there, and now you can't go back to Trubisky. I mean, you can't do that if this guy's supposed to be your future. But again, to me, it was a mistake. Hopefully he gets better. But that's the problem, is that we didn't help with our roster. And when you don't help a rookie with the roster, and I know we have outside weapons and we have those things, but the line is terrible. And if you have a bad line with a rookie quarterback that's not just a spectacular player, it's a problem. And that's where we are.
Yeah. I have to ask you about this game because as I was preparing, I was starting to think about what my favorite Vikings Steelers memory was. And it was just too hard for me to get away from this.
Okay.
One, because it's recency bias, but 2, because it was the most insane game I think I've ever watched in my entire life.
It was last year, right?
It was last year. I was at that game, Brian. I was at that game, and I watched my team go up by, what was it, 28 or like 30 points by halftime. I'm watching Dalvin Cook. Literally, it looks like we're playing a team that doesn't even have 11 people out on the field. I don't know what was going on with your run D. I don't know if it was a scheme thing or you guys had injuries. Honestly, I can't remember. But it was the most insane. Like I was there live, so you can see everything. It's like watching, the all 22. Mm-hmm. It's like the holes was like, they're 20 yards wide. It looked like, and I'm going, holy moly. And then the second half happens, and I watch you guys come back and have a chance to win the game. At the end of that, it was just, I was so disappointed in my team, even though we won. That was one of those wins where I left that stadium and I just thought to myself, this is not a good team. Like, this is not a good team. Right. So that's my memory. And again, I know it's recency bias because it was just last year. But what about you? Do you have any fond memories of maybe, beating us pretty badly, or any good games that are kind of stewing in the back of your head for you?
Honestly, I don't. I'm not a person. I like rivalries.
Oh, sure.
And I don't know that Steelers and Minnesota, I know they played at Super Bowl, but that was, ages ago, even before I was born. So I don't really have, anything that sticks out of my mind necessarily. I do remember the game last year, though. I was watching it here at the house with a buddy, and I'm like, there couldn't be more open holes for Dalvin Cook to run if nobody was on the field. It was like a walkthrough against air. It was absolutely unbelievable. And then, just like you said, then a switch gets flipped, and all of a sudden, we're going up and down the field with zero resistance in the second half. I'm like, what is going on here? It's like, I've never seen a game change like that so quickly. And it wasn't like Minnesota had, there's this game-changing turnover. No, it was just kind of, The Steelers started playing. They stopped the run finally, and then they started clicking on offense. And then here we go. It's just, I don't know. It was crazy. It was a fun game to watch. It was frustrating as heck as a Steelers fan, but I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a similar game like that we came out on the losing end of years back. I want to say back in maybe 2013, where the Vikings played Baltimore, and in Baltimore, and it was snowing, and there was something crazy like 3 touchdowns were scored in the last, or no, I think it was 4 touchdowns were scored in the last minute and a half. And
Okay.
there were like two kickoff returns for touchdowns back to back from both teams. And it was wild. So, those games are fun. Certainly it's always a little more fun to come out on the winning end. But
Absolutely.
yeah, boy, that was just a wild game. One of my favorite moments from that game, just a little nuancy part. I remember them, they always want to do the little interview with the coaches,
Mhm.
between the, before and after the half. And I remember it was we talked to Mike Tomlin and we asked him what the Steelers are going to try to do differently in the in the second half. And that first half was so bad. I'm pretty sure his response was like, "Really?" Like, yeah, you know, maybe I don't know, not let Dalvin Cook rush for 200 yards and a half. That would be preferable. But yeah, that was certainly a fun one. I think my favorite Steelers memory that has nothing to do with the Vikings was that, of course, the Steelers Cardinals Super Bowl was one of my all time favorites.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
that was a great one. Well, that kind of transitions us into the next little segment here. Of course, we always like to talk some betting lines here on Skol with Steggie. So I'm going to go through the AFC and NFC North matchups. So any matchups that include a team from one of our divisions, we'll go over, talk about the betting line, maybe a little over and under, maybe a little fantasy outlook. We'll take a look here. So the first game we have on the slate is going to be Panthers at Bengals. Bengals are favored in this one by 7. Over and under sitting at 42 and a half. You certainly know the Bengals a little more than I do. What do you think, Brian?
Well, I mean, I believe that the Panthers may have figured something out last week. I really do. I don't like the -7. I think the game will be closer. Look, Jamar Chase is a huge part of what the Bengals do. I mean, he just is. And him not being there is going to make this game closer. I think the Bengals probably win, but in this, I like the over. I do. I think both of them are going to score some points. The Bengals are going to score. The Panthers are going to score. The Bengals defense isn't that great. They're pretty aggressive, but you can move the football, as was seen last week by Cleveland. Cleveland just ran it at will and ran completely over them, threw it over. They did whatever they wanted. The Panthers will be able to move the football. Now, could it be just a 1 or 2 week wonder for the Panthers? I don't know. I think they've got some things figured out over there. I like the Bengals to win. I don't know if I like the -7, but I would definitely like the 42 and a half, the over.
Yeah. Yeah, this is kind of a tough game. I would agree with you. I think what helps is that Cincinnati's at home.
Yes.
I think if Carolina was at home, I might hedge to play the spoiler on this one a little bit more. I'm with you. I don't know if I really like the points here. I think the Panthers might cover. I don't know if they'll win. But man, Cincinnati really has been struggling. And as you mentioned, having Chase out, it certainly seems as if the other supporting cast members can't, pick it up. And I'm not saying, hey, if we lost Justin Jefferson, we'd be in the same boat. But I really, have high or had high expectations for like Mixon, for instance, this year. And he just has kind of turned out to be okay.
Yeah.
He's not a guy who's gonna be elite, and I think that's just where he sits. Does that make him a bad back? No, I think he's an okay back. They have other problems, obviously, than just Mixon, but yeah, I'm a little testy on this one. Certainly like PK over in Carolina. What just a crazy turn of events. I was
Yeah.
actually just looking at their stats here. So through the first, what would that be, 6 weeks, Carolina with, of course, Baker and company, they were averaging 280 yards total of total offense per game. the last 2 weeks with my man PK, they've had 350 yards of total offense, and last week was 486 yards of total offense without Christian McCaffrey. So, yeah, and this is really kind of a good example, not to really bring us back full circle, but we were talking about the Tomlin thing in Pittsburgh. Look at what new can do to a ball club because all these guys are professionals, right? Every single guy that's in the NFL is talented. They've been a superstar at some point in their career, which is why they're in the NFL. So you tell these guys you can't do it, you're second fiddle, oh, you're on a bad team, you're not going to win. That puts a little chip on their shoulder. And when they get a new coach, they get a new quarterback that comes in, I'm sure the spark will wear off. But could it
Absolutely.
still sustain this week? Yeah, I'm gonna go with you, but I'm gonna go Panthers and over on this
Okay.
one.
I like it.
They might not win, but I think they're beating that spread.
I like it.
Yeah. All right, next one we've got is the Vikings game. So this is going to be Vikings at Commanders. Vikings are favored by 3.5. Over and under here is 43.5. Brian, what do you think?
I actually think that the Vikings cover on this one. I do. They're going on the road. The Commanders, I mean, sooner or later, all this negative news is going to take an effect on the football team. I mean, now it's come out that, the owner, Dan Snyder, is actually going to sell the team, and he's going to sell the team. You're not putting out that you're looking to sell it if you're not going to sell the team. That's what's going to happen. The coach is tired of answering questions. Players are tired of answering questions about it. I just like the Vikings. I think the Vikings are on a roll. This is a game that they should win. The Commanders can't score that many points, although, I mean, yeah, they just can't score that many points. I mean, they can't really run it that well. They throw it okay. Their defense is what's surprising, is not as good as what we anticipated it was going to be. Now, I know it hadn't been all the way healthy, but either way, it's still not as good. I like the Vikings to cover here.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I feel like I'm going to give an unbiased take because, of course, that's what we do here. Last week, I was certainly ready to put my foot in my mouth, and I got to because I picked the Cardinals to win against my Vikings. But this week, Purple Faithful, I am picking the Vikings to cover 3.5. To be honest with you, I'm surprised it's not more.
Yeah.
I suppose it does help that that they are in Washington. I'm sure that obviously, as you know, if anybody who bets knows that home field advantage is worth probably around 3 points each week. So,
Yep.
3.5, I'll take it. I'm surprised it's not more. I feel pretty good about that bet at 3.5. The over under is a little tedious. I am going to take it over at 43.5 because I don't see the Vikings stopping that many teams. I mean, I know they held the Packers to 7 points, but the Packers are, at least that offense is not good.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say final on this one's probably going to be, and we don't have to give a final for each one, but I'm just trying to talk my way through it.
Sure.
I think this one's going to be 28 to like 20. That's where I'm going with this one. Maybe they try to claw back. Heineke starts to, get some magic going late in the fourth quarter. I just don't think it's enough.
No, I like the Vikings here.
Yeah. All right. Next one we have Packers at Lions. And this is kind of a funky one. I'm going to be honest with you. I'll start with this one and then I'll let you give me your take. I don't like this game as a Vikings fan because the way I see this game is it might be a get right game for the Packers. And I know part of this is my Vikings insecurity that the Packers are always looming somewhere and they never go away like a bad rash. So I think the Packers cover here, and I think it goes over. I mean, I know that's a lot of points. The Lions have been kind of inconsistent on offense now, where that offense was rolling for the first maybe 5-6 weeks of the year, and then they kind of got a little weird. And part of that's Amon St. Brown has had some issues, and Swift is back to his week to week normal status. But yeah, I'm a little concerned with the over and under. But if I'm betting real money and not just Steggie dollars, I'm going Packers to cover and the over. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the Packers, offense is in shambles. I mean, they don't have a receiver to throw on the outside. They just don't. Um, they can't really run it anymore because teams have decided we're going to single up on the outside and we're not going to let you run this football. So, and then the Lions, I mean, the Lions all of a sudden they fire the defensive back coach. Like, that's the problem. I'm like, what are you doing? He's not the problem. How about the defensive coordinator? That might be the problem. I mean, with the defensive back coach not calling these plays, again, it just goes to the Lions' dysfunction as an organization. But you're right about a get right game. If the Packers can't get right on this one, they're not going to be right all season. So I'm going to give Aaron Rodgers and the Packers the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to take them to cover this game, but I'm going to go under. I'm going to go under. I just don't think that the Packers or the Lions are going to be, because the Packers defense is actually decent. They haven't played great the last few games, but I think, again, if we're talking get right games, this may be a game where they actually get right on defense. So I'm going to say the Packers cover, and I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad bet. I don't like it though. I would much rather have the Packers be at 3-6 because let me tell you something, Brian. I've been living with this since Favre, and I'm tired of it, man. That I can just see it. They're 3-5, and then that NFC is so weak that they somehow string together some wins, and then they eke in, at like 9-8 or somehow they get in, and it just don't. I'm gonna have nightmares if I keep talking about it. So I need them to go away as fast as possible. And Rodgers says this is, sources say that Rodgers has basically stated this is his last year that he's going to retire. And as a Vikings fan, I say, bring on the Jordan Love era because I am ready for that guy to stop torturing me every single year. All right, next game, we've got a little AFC NFC matchup here. We've got Dolphins at Bears. Dolphins are picked by 5. Over under is 45.5. Brian, I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to tell me, but I want to get confirmation. How you feeling?
I mean, the weather's not going to be horrible in Chicago, so I believe the Dolphins are definitely going to cover, and the over all day long. I mean, because I believe the Dolphins might score 45 points, themselves. I mean, the Bears, again, you trade away one of the best linebackers in the NFL. I don't know what you're doing. A guy that actually wanted to stay, he just wanted to be paid. You're not paying anybody. You would think, hey, let's build our defense around this guy. Nope, not in Chicago. We're not doing that. We're going to trade him away, and we're just going to try to get draft picks. I mean, and sooner or later, you have to pay somebody. I mean, and why not the best linebacker or one of the 2-3 best linebackers in the NFL? Nope. Dolphins, way too many weapons. I'm taking the over for sure, and I'm taking the Dolphins to cover.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The one thing that's a little interesting about this game is that the Bears, their weakness, which is going to be even weaker now with the aforementioned departure that you just mentioned, is against the run.
Yeah.
I mean, they're against the pass. They're obviously not wonderful. They have their moments. They gave up over 200 yards to just wide receivers against the Vikings. But if I'm looking at the run game, I mean, boy, there's multiple games here where against teams that like to run the ball, like Dallas, for instance, put up 200 last week. Pollard went for however many in 3 tutties. You've got the game against the Giants where Barkley went off. They put up 262 yards on the ground on the Bears. So, I mean, they're susceptible to teams that can run. Miami doesn't really run that much. So I still love all the talent on that team. I think that with them being sellers at the deadline, I don't know how good or how well that helps a locker room.
Yeah.
So especially on that defense, losing a leader like that. So yeah, I'm definitely taking the Dolphins. I'm taking the over. I'm with you all day long. Yeah, I think they're gonna kill him.
Well, the one thing about it is, the Bears. I mean, one way to look at it is, especially they're bad against the run. they may not be all that bad against the pass because teams are just like, well, we're not going to throw it because we can just run it right down their throat and we're going to continue to do it. And they literally cannot stop it.
Yeah, no, that's very, very true. Very, very true. All right, last game that we have on the slate. You got a familiar foe here. Monday Night Football's Ravens at Saints. Ravens are picked by 2.5. Over-unders at 48. I'll start off on this one, and then, of course, I'll let you tell me what you think about this Ravens game. I think, well, obviously, I'm going to take the Ravens here, especially with the news today that Thomas is now going on IR for the Saints again, which is just too bad. I mean, he's just another guy that just can't stay healthy. But regardless, I'm taking the Ravens, even though it's in New Orleans. The Ravens got to get it right. I still think there's too much dysfunction in New Orleans between Dalton and Winston. Who's going to start? It sounds like it'll be probably Dalton again. I just think there's no. It feels like New Orleans has a lot of talent, but nobody's leading the ship. Yep. Ever since Peyton left, it just feels like a team without a direction. So I'm going to go Ravens. Ravens want this one. Lamar is going to be able to run all over the place like he usually does. I think it'll be a good game for him. The one interesting thing will be from a fantasy perspective, if Andrews can't go, it is a Monday night game. So we won't know until it gets a little closer. Obviously, it sounds like he'll be a game time decision. But boy, I really like not to I'm going to have to space out my words here. I really likely their rookie tight end they've got that's behind Andrews. He's something. I think he might be the next in line. And again, if you're a fantasy player, if Andrews is out, boy, that's going to be the pickup of the week if you can hold out that long.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the Ravens in this one too. It's just what you said. The Saints just can't get it figured out. They just don't know what they're doing. Winston, I mean, they don't have a leader. Now, even if the coach of Peyton leaving, your quarterback can be the leader. But when your quarterback is hurt all the time, it's tough to have that leadership in the locker room. And it's also tough because the leader of the team, is on the defensive side of the football, and when that happens, that's fine, but they don't score enough points. They don't do enough on offense. They're not innovative. Andy Dalton kind of is what he is. Jameis Winston, I thought was going to have a decent year, especially how he started off last year and then got hurt. I thought, okay, well, he'll come back and have a good year. Well, it didn't start off that way. He was okay, and then he literally broke his back. I mean, that's tough to come back from. And so there's just too much dysfunction. It's just what you said as far as what the Saints. I just like the Ravens. I like the Ravens to win. I like them to cover. I don't like the over. I don't necessarily like that, but I definitely like the Ravens to win this game and cover the 2.5.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to be a tough game to pick from a fantasy perspective because Baltimore has been so bad against opposing wide receivers.
Yes.
So the thing is, you're going, who does start at quarterback? I kind of think regardless, unless they do something crazy like we're going to start Taysom Hill. Let's hope they don't do that. Just so we can make it more predictable. But I think with Dalton or Winston, not that you wouldn't start him anyway, but I think Olave is going to be a hot pickup this week because, Tampa, as bad as that game was, put up 243 yards just to wide receivers on Baltimore last. That secondary is bad.
Yeah, it's not any good. Secondary is not any good. And they don't really generate that much of a pass rush either. So guys are sitting back there being able to pick them apart. I definitely like Olave. He's on my fantasy team that I have. I have 2 teams. He's on both of them. I was able to sneak him in. People did, he's not going to be that good. Michael Thomas coming back. I'm like, trust me, Olave's that guy. And he's proven to be that guy. And you're right about Michael Thomas. It's too bad. Again, another guy just cannot stay healthy. And they're talking about this one might be career ending. And I'm like, many Christmas, man. It's like, it's just sad to see because he is ultra talented, but just hasn't been able to stay on the field.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't help the Saints either that Kamara, was kind of MIA for a little while at the beginning of the season. It's just been a weird year. I'm glad I'm not a Saints fan because I'm sure it's been very frustrating.
Absolutely.
So far. All right, man. Well, let's get into the last segment of the evening here, where we're going to do a little fantasy smash. Last week, I went up against Tanner Anderson, and I do have to tell you that I did win
Okay.
last week's fantasy smash. I ended up with I believe it was like 236 fantasy points because
Okay.
I had AJ Brown, I had Jalen Hurts, Waddle,
Oh,
Pollard.
yeah.
It was yeah, I almost felt bad about it. I'm going to be honest with you, Brian. Um, Tanner did have a pretty good showing, though. I think he totaled out at about 156. So, certainly kudos to Tanner last week. But your boy's still winning here. So, what we're going to go ahead and do, and we'll just go kind of back and forth here. We'll draft our teams, our fantasy teams. Obviously, whoever you want. I can't take any of your players. You can't take any of my players. Just like a regular draft. We're going to fill out just a standard PPR,
Sure.
lineup here. So quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, tight end, flex, kicker,
Okay.
and then defense. But since you're my guest, of course, Brian, I'm going to let you have the first pick, man. And
Okay.
you tell me what you want. I'll log the pick, so I'll keep track of them.
All right. So, first pick, I am going to, I'm going to do this unconventional. I'm going to take a quarterback and I'm just going to go right down the list and I'm going to take Josh Allen.
All right, Mr. Allen. I don't think that's a bad pick. Yeah, never a bad pick with Josh Allen. All right, well, I'm going to go first pick. I am going to take I'm going to take a wide receiver first, which is a little odd, but you know what? You said unconventional. I like it. I am going to go with Tyreek. I'm going to take Tyreek Hill.
Okay. So, next pick, just to obviously try to get double points here, I am going to take Stephon Diggs.
Ooh, going with the old Diggs and Allen stack. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. I see your Stephon Diggs, and I am going to take. Well, let's see. I am going to take Mr. Derrick Henry.
Okay.
It's going to be an interesting matchup this week with KC, but we'll see what happens.
Well, speaking of KC, I'm going to take the tight end and take Travis Kelce.
Ooh, that's another good pick. That is another good pick. I feel like I'm going to have a really weird lineup,
Okay.
but I'm going to keep taking some of the more staple players here. So I'm going to take Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take Mahomes as my QB. So I've got so far quarterback, 1 running back, 1 receiver. You've got your quarterback, 1 receiver, and a tight end.
Yes. So let's see here. Who should I take next?
I know it's tough, isn't it?
It is.
It's a tough week.
Oh, I guess I should take a running back. Give me Dalvin Cook.
All right.
I apologize.
No. Hey, I will always accept the Vikings love. We are very insecure fans. So anytime we hear of any Vikings love, you score lots of points with us.
Okay.
I am going to go with my let's see. I'm going to go with my second receiver, and I'm going to stick with a stack as well, and I'm going to take Juju this week.
Okay. He's playing well, isn't he?
He sure is.
He is playing well. All right. So my next receiver, I hate to do it to you, but I think I'm going to take Justin Jefferson.
You're just here to make me feel good, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it, Brian. You're always welcome on the show now.
All right.
All right, I'm going to take my second running back, and I'm going to go with Mr. Aaron Jones from Green Bay.
Got it.
I think he's going to have a day against the old Lions.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm going to take my second running back, Austin Eckler.
Ooh, there we go.
At some point, they got to put it together. Offense is too good. At some point, they got to put it together.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad pick, man. He won me so many games last year.
Yes. Tons.
Yeah, he's another guy too, where it's just if he could just stay healthy, man. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, he's been able to play a little bit more than some of the other people we've mentioned, but he always seems to be dealing with something. Both him and Keenan.
Yes.
This year, it
Keenan's on.
seems to have bit Mike Williams, unfortunately. But
Yep.
all right, let's see. So I'm gonna take. Ooh, maybe I'll take my third receiver. I might as well. I am going to take Scary Terry. I'm going to take Terry McLaurin against our terrible Viking secondary.
Okay. And I think I have 2 receivers, right?
You have 2. Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to take my third and take Jalen Waddle.
Ooh, good one. Well, we're buddying up. It's going to be one of us is going to be scoring some points in that game. That's for sure. All right. So I've got a flex, a tight end, and a defense left. Ooh, what do I want to take here? I think I am going to take. I'm going to take Zach Ertz this week.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's got a really good matchup, and so I'm going with Ertz.
Okay. All right. So as a flex, you know what? Give me Chris Olave.
Ooh, it's a good pick. It's a good pick. Get Olave logged there for you. Yeah, now we get into the picks that don't matter that much. Oh wait, no, I still have a flex. How about that? That's right. We don't have to start picking defenses yet. Let me go. I'm still gonna go weird here though. I am gonna take. This is gonna be a weird pick here, Brian, and this is gonna make or break me, man. I'm swinging for the fences. I am going to take Romeo Dobbs with Green Bay.
You think he gets it going, huh?
I just think, Rodgers is going to be out for blood this week. Right. And Lazard still is he's still a little limited in practice. Yeah. And Dobbs has been getting the lion's share of the targets. And as we've already talked about, the Lions don't scare me. So we will see.
Okay, I like it. So as far as a defense, the 49ers are not on a bye. So I believe I will take them.
I think the Niners are on a bye this week.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They are on a bye.
Yeah, they are on a bye this week. Yeah. Ugh. I only know that because when I was reconfiguring my lineups, I have McCaffrey, and I went, oh, well, just in time for him to not win me a week.
Oh, gotcha. Well, let's see. I don't know. As far as the defense is concerned, you know what? Give me the Chiefs.
All right.
Because I don't think Tannehill's going to play, and if it's Malik Willis, that's going to be a problem because the Chiefs won't let Henry, or at least they shouldn't let Henry beat him.
You wouldn't think so. You wouldn't think so. All right, I'm gonna go with the Dolphins this week.
Ooh.
Yeah, I just think that they've got a pretty good defense, and Chicago has no one. And
no.
And actually, the funny thing is, I said this on last week's podcast. I'm not a Fields hater. I actually think that Fields has some talent. The problem is he just has no talent around him.
None.
And so he's a guy that you can tell he's pretty prideful about trying to not be this just running quarterback. And I get that, man. He wants to pass, man. He doesn't want to have to use his legs, but he has to right now. And so until he starts embracing it, boy, they're just going to struggle. So, yeah, I'm taking the Dolphins.
I like it. And then as far as a kicker,
and look, hey, Brian, I'm going to tell you this too. Unless you know him, that's totally fine. Gotcha. But if you just want to pick the team's kicker, because I don't know all the kickers' names, I have to look them up. So,
right, I'm just gonna take. I don't know. I usually try to stick with the kicker and a defense, so I will take Butker from Kansas City.
Okay, I like it. And I'm going to take Crosby for the Packers because, again, I just don't see them stopping them. And you know what? If they do, maybe he kicks a boatload of field goals. I don't know.
There you go.
So, all right. Well, we have our lineup set. Of course, best of luck to you, Brian.
You as
Um,
well.
I'm going to be honest with you. Looking at both of our lineups, I think I like yours better than mine. So we're going to redraft now. I'm going to edit. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Well, Brian, it's been a ton of fun, man. I really appreciate you joining me. We'll definitely do it again. Hopefully you're up for that sometime. It's
Absolutely.
been a pleasure interviewing you, getting to know you a little bit better. Of course, talking Steelers. Enjoy your bye week. Before we do wrap up, though, where can everyone find all the great things that you're putting out there? Where can they find your great content?
Well, I appreciate that. We are everywhere. I mean, I have a podcast. I haven't done one in a while, but I've got a lot of them up anywhere that you get a podcast. So Spotify, Apple, Google, all those places, Anchor. Basically, it's Big B Sports Talk. So anywhere that you see the logo, that's me. Obviously, I'm on Twitter at Big B Sports Talk. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. More importantly, I'm on YouTube as well. So, and again, just Big B Sports Talk. Subscribe. I appreciate it. Comment. I always respond to the majority of the comments that I get. I think that's important to engage with everybody. I love having fun with this. So I appreciate you inviting me on. I'll come back anytime that you have me back, man. I had a really, really good time. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it was a pleasure having you again, Brian. Of course, we're going to wrap up the show. I always like to give us a nice little Skol here, and then we're going to play the outro. Brian, if you want to stick around, you certainly can. We can chat a little bit after we're done. But as far as this episode, we are all done. And again, Skol Vikes!